Oh, hello, hello. How is it going? Um, it looks like Russ, you're the only one here right now. We got a few more people that did get tickets. If you don't mind, just give me a thumbs up. Let me know the sound's good. I'm on my own today. I don't have my normal editor guy. So, also doing things quite different. We're going through my streaming software into Facebook with like a streaming key and stuff like that. So it's all different. So, but I'm going to wait a couple more minutes before we get started. So I know anybody who bought a ticket will have access to this after it's gone live too, and not everyone will be able to just see it. So thanks for this comment on the shades. I have some pop blood vessels that are show up like really gross in the camera, so I'm just wearing sunglasses when I'm on face cam. So anyway, so yeah, I mean the people that bought tickets will be able to see this whether they're here right now or they come in later. Oh yeah, I wish, man. I wish for the. So, anyways, yeah. To get into this, sorry. A few things just to go over real quick is just we're looking at stringing guitars and why that's so important. And weirdly enough, there's a lot of science that goes. Well, not weirdly enough. If you've worked on guitars, you know there's a lot of science that goes into building a guitar, and there's a lot of science that goes into a guitar being functional and staying functional. Whether it's just like how woods work, or if it's tensions or just angles, all sorts of things that go into play here. And stringing guitars seems like should be a no-brainer, right? But I know a lot of people that don't do it themselves because they struggle with it for a few reasons, and most of that's just nobody showed them proper technique to do it. And then the other people that struggle is just because they don't understand the science and the functionality behind tuners and things like that. So with that being said, I'm going to go over all the stuff that's on the headstock today. So bridges and things like that, they're all different. There's guitars that string through the back, which it will be the guitar that I'm stringing today is one like that. There's fixed set bridges, hardtails, there's floating bridges, we have acoustic guitars, they have end pins, things like that. So if we have time, I'll pull an acoustic guitar out and go ahead and take care of that one too. But right now, what I really want to focus on is kind of like what's behind strings, what's behind the tuners, and why they work the way they do. So, yeah. With all that being said, I got some cool new camera angles here to play with. Boom. All right, so right here we have a 4x2 headstock. It's a Traverse Guitars headstock. It might look similar to you because Ernie Ball makes a very, very, very similar style. The reason why I like to use these 4x2s is because I feel like the strings stay really darn straight when they go through the nut and then go to the headstock tuners. I like when the strings stay straight for a couple reasons. The biggest reason is that the nut here has a lot less tension and a lot less friction, which causes less tuning issues. You'll have better tuning stability when you don't have as much friction here. But at the same time, you still want a tight nut slot so that your string isn't sliding back and forth this way. So, with that being said, that's why I like the 4x2. That doesn't mean that other systems don't work. But you see how straight this would be going through this nut here. Anywho, inline 6s, 3x3s, all of those work. The 4x2 is just something I like. It's unique. And again, I feel like the tuning stability is slightly better when the strings are straight. A note about strings too, and I wanted to touch on this also, is the way these strings work. And I hope that this autofocus is on the string. Come on, camera. Well, I'm sure if you're watching this, you understand that strings are wound. A lot of the strings are wound. The first 3 strings minimum on an electric guitar are always wound. And when I say wound, I mean there's a small string that goes through, and then there's string wound around that small string. And I'm sorry that's a little blurry. I do apologize. Not sure I can do anything with that here. So, but anywho, so we have a wound string, which means the strings, when they come from the factory and they come out of the bag or the bundle or whatever you get, when you get those strings, they can stretch. Not only can they stretch, they will stretch. They will stretch a lot. And the bigger the string and the more wraps the string has, the more it will stretch out. So thanks so much for the like, Matt. Really, really appreciate it. Welcome. So string stretching is totally normal and something that we can take care of. But keep in mind, string stretching causes intonation issues. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit later when we start talking about wrapping the string. So just to go over a few more things too. The 4x2, again, I enjoy the most because of the straightness of the string going through the nut into the headstock tuners. Okay, I think that adds a little more tuning stability. And then the other thing is it adds less friction on the nut, which helps with the tuning. And then strings are wound. The first three minimum are wound, and sometimes even the fourth and fifth, depending on the gauges that you have. Usually not the fifth, but sometimes. And they will stretch, and they will stretch a lot. So let's have some fun and go to a new camera angle, which is also my gut angle. So this angle I wanted to show off because we have a couple of things going on here. The side view is really important when you're stringing a guitar, and this nut isn't perfect yet. I know I literally just threw this nut in here about a half hour ago. This is a Traverse Custom that's not quite ready to go out on the floor yet. We still have to take care of the nut, but I figured I'd string it up so we can do the nut work next week and get it out on the floor for sale. So with that being said, we're not going to pay too much attention to the string height on the nuts and stuff like that right now. The whole purpose of this is to talk about stringing. So we're going to go down here and we're going to take a look at this tuning peg. And the first thing that I want you guys to notice is that it is got this cone shape to it. Okay? This cone shape here is designed for a reason. So obviously if we have our string way up here, the cone is going to push it down in the middle when we add tension. If we're down here, the cone strength or the cone shape should stretch it to the middle, and it should slide upward. That's the purpose of this and this right here, and you should see that on pretty much all tuners. You will have that cone shape. That cone shape is really, really important, and we're going to play to its advantages. A lot of people end up overwinding a string. The tuners are only this tall, and for me personally, I only put string underneath when I'm wrapping. I know a lot of people stick it through, wrap it around the top, and then start winding on the bottom. And I can explain that and show that when we're doing the actual stringing. But for me, I stick the string through the hole, and then I start winding it below. So I mentioned that the strings have different stretchiness and gauges. They stretch based off the gauge, which means the more string you have, the more it's going to stretch. So I personally don't like to wind a bunch onto my tuner. I like a wrap and a half. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people love that. So I know there's several other music stores that when you go and you get your guitar restrung, they insist that they get wrapped 3 or 4 times because they want to make sure that string is on there and it's not going anywhere. And I get that, but if it's properly wrapped, this cone shape for the tuner is going to apply pressure upward to where your string is coming through that hole, and it's going to force pressure, and it's not going to allow that string to come out of that hole. So, do we have any questions so far? Anything like that? I'm going to keep talking because I know the stream's quite delayed. It's probably about 30 seconds before I get an answer if we have any questions. So I'm just going to keep going. But if you have questions, button anytime you want. And when the minute I see it, I'll start answering it. So, yes. So here at Traverse Music, we don't wind more than we need to. The other theory behind the extra string on the tuner is that it's more mass, so you're going to get more tone. I'm not sure I totally believe that, and I mean, theoretically it makes sense, but there's a couple things you have to keep in mind. The nut right here is where the vibration, for the most part, is stopping. We're getting our tone this way, to the bridge. We're not getting tone from over here. So, can it possibly add to the tone a little bit because it's technically more weight on the entire string itself? Maybe. Will the human ear hear that? I don't think so. You know, you obviously hear the differences when you change gauges, but I don't think you hear the difference when you just have an extra wrap on there or two. For me personally, it's just more string you have to stretch out, and the strings that are wrapped around here are the hardest area to stretch out. So when you only have a wrap and a half on here, stretching a string out and having it ready for intonation is so much quicker, and I don't hear a difference in tone personally. So the theory I go by is our vibrations stop here for the most part. Our sound comes from this direction. Having 2 extra wraps down here isn't changing my tone, not noticeably. So whenever you get a guitar from me, or whenever you ask my opinion, we're going to wrap this as little as we have to, but enough to where it's stable and it's not going to come out. Stream and work in the stream at the same time, so yeah. Just switching back and forth, making sure that we're getting everything going. So, anyways, cool. Let's wrap a string. The first thing I want to talk about when we're wrapping the string is what I do before I even put the string through, and that is I make sure that all the holes are in line with the nut. So that when the string goes through, it goes right through this way. So as you can see, well, as you might be able to see, depending on the size screen you're on, the hole's right here. We are going to go ahead and just rotate this string that our hole is going this way. So when I pull the string taut on the bridge, and I push the string through the hole, it goes straight through. There's no tension having to go around and then come through or anything like that. So, past here you have a ton of different options. There are lots of ways to go ahead and figure out how much slack to give your string. A nice general rule is about 1 tuner length. So if I put my fingers right here and I pull this back, that's my 1 tuner length. This is the slack that I have. It's not a lot of slack. Once you restring guitars a lot, you're going to find that you kind of have a feel for what you want. So we're going to go ahead and go about 1 tuner length. This is part of the technique right here that I'm about to show you, and it's much easier with the thicker strings than it is with the thinner strings. But the best technique I've ever found is we're going to apply pressure with our first finger, and then with this middle finger, we're going to pull the string tight. And I'm going to go ahead and bend this string in. So this right here is tight. This right here is all tight. There's tension everywhere. So when I start to wrap this string, there's tension, and I'm controlling the tension with my middle finger right here. I'm going to use a manual winder and start to wind. Once I get right here, what I like to do is I like to take my string and flip it straight up in the air, okay? Now, this is when we get to the really fun, cool stuff. Right here, you can see I'm letting some tension off the bottom, or off the string. It's coming off the guitar. And what I'm doing is I'm getting this string to go right underneath the string going through the hole. That's going to prevent it from slipping out of that hole when we cut it later. And then we continue to wrap, and we wrap underneath. And again, the reason why we're wrapping underneath is because we want that cone That cone that we have, we want the tension of the string pushing up into this string. So now we have about a wrap and a half on there, and we're close to tension that we need to be. Now it is totally up to you. I never bring my strings completely up to tension when I'm doing this. We're about a step low. So we're real close to an E right there. Not sure if that's going to show up, but maybe we'll just do that. All right. Once your string is tight right here, you can cut this, and you can cut this as close to here as you want. The cutters I like to use, I just buy on like Amazon, or I get them at Menards. They're flush cutters, so I can get right up next to that string, right up next to the tuner, and cut it right off. I don't like extra stuff here because I don't like getting poked. I hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. So let's see if we're in tune still. There we go. All right, so we're on an E. Hopefully you can see that. We're going to talk about the string stretching. It's the best way to do this is probably go back a camera, and then maybe we'll just crank it a little here. I think that's going to be better. Sorry, again, I'm the only person here doing this, so I know we changed some angles and things like that. But you can see here now, when I stretch my string, I put my thumb here on the nut, and then I pull the string all the way down and then all the way back up. And we're going to watch the difference in the intonation. So let's go back to that angle and hope that it works perfect, because I did bump that camera a little bit. Yeah, we're still good on that angle. All right, so if we go ahead and try to tune this now, we are very low. Back to an E again. I'm going to go ahead and repeat this. Pull the string, pull the string, pull the string. The thicker strings you have a lot more pull on. The thinner strings, you don't want to pull that much. So right now, I know there's some buzzing. Like I said, this is a brand new net. We haven't done any work on it or anything like that. This is a brand new build, so nothing's set up right now. But the point is the tuning. So what we're looking at here now is we got a nice clean wrap and a half. It's cut off flush, and it's stable because there's not a ton of extra string here that we have to stretch out still. And everything is pushing upward into that string, holding the string into the tuner. So if you got any questions, please send them off in the chat and let me know what you're thinking. I'm going to go on and move ahead to the next one, and I'm just going to explain all the steps one more time as I go. So I have all the other tuners lined up already, like we did the first one. Something I just naturally did. Pull it taut on the bridge, pull it all the way down, grab it about a tuner out, go ahead and give my tension, crank it sideways. Okay? Manually rotate it for forever. Once it gets about there, I lift it up. And you can see I pulled my finger up off the headstock again. Want it nice and tight under that string. Now I'm going to push it right back down. We're going to keep winding. That's one full wind and about a half a wind. Little over half. So the thinner the string, the more wind we're going to have with that space that we have. But get to our A. We have plenty of tension here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this nice and flush. Again, if we wind this correctly, we have no worries of that coming out. And I don't normally stretch each string as I tune it. What I normally do is put all the strings on, stretch them all, tune it all up. But for sake of the stream, we're going to go ahead and do this. So, again, pulling up on this, stretching, 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 stretching. So how flat we got there, stretching it once, stretching it twice. Cool. So this is what I prefer to see. This is what I like to see. This is clean. This is just not overdone. It's all you need to do. It's honestly, in my opinion, this is the perfect way to string a guitar. So we can keep going if you guys want, or we can get into some techniques on what I do with guitars that aren't brand new. Some of the techniques I use for cleaning and maintaining them in between stuff. So if you guys want to talk about that, please let me know. A big thing to think about too when we're stringing up guitars, this is a tusk nut. So this tusk nut doesn't need any lubrication. They're self-lubricating. But if we don't have a tusk nut, I like to use this stuff here. This is just Music Nomad's Tune It. You just put a little bit and it helps reduce the friction on the nut here. So we just put a little tiny dot on the nut where your string goes through. It's just going to help create lubrication, especially if you have a plastic nut or if you have a bone nut. The other sweet trick, and I use that stuff just because I just want to use what's absolutely the best when there are customers. The other cool trick to use, and let's see, I think that's the right camera, is old-fashioned pencil. So you get a pencil, and if you just draw in here, you color in there, that is going to lubricate those spots just fine. So, and a lot of people do that. Go ahead and switch the overhead on there. So, again, far from necessary on a tusk nut, but it doesn't hurt. So, lubricating your nut is very, very important, again, for the string tension going through. As you can see what I'm talking about with like the straightness of these strings going through. If we were to bring this guy through here too and go right up to that next tuner, you can see how straight this string goes through here. That's really going to reduce friction here. This nut definitely does not need lubricating. Again, not going to hurt it, but on a guitar with this style headstock, once you wrap that string around, that's going to go great. So we'll do one more string. We're going to do it from a top angle just to show that one more time. And then we're going to move on to a couple tools that I use that aren't manual winders. So from the top, sorry, I was doing my own little thing here. We're going to go about a tuner length, right? Pull it back. That's our slack. Crank it over. Grab old school winder, flip it up. I lift my finger slightly off the headstock, get that string nice and tight, push it back down, and then we wind. That's one full rotation. So yeah, it's about a wrap and a half. Slightly over that, but that, again, that's okay. It's not. It's not for perfection there. So, again, as you see with the top-down view, we have nice straight strings going right through this nut here where there's not a lot of tension, there's not a lot of issues. So, what I normally use to wind strings is this. Now, there are a lot of different ways to get an electric wrapper. There's ones that are sold specifically for that. This is a household electric screwdriver off Amazon. And it is, I think this is Music Nomad again. Yeah, a Music Nomad winder. The reason why I like this more than this is, one, it's electric. Two, it's not plastic. It's got this rubbery type feel to it. So if I am to nick the wood or something like that on this, it's not that big of a deal. So, that was one half rotation. So, and you can see how much faster that is than us sitting there and winding it. So what I'm going to do, especially with a thinner string, since we didn't do a thinner string, we're going to go ahead and do this final string through. All right. So you're going, Travis, I don't have a tuner past this one. What do I do? Well, that's pretty cool. It's pretty easy to figure out too. You just go a tuner back. So I pull it taut, I grab it right here, and I pull it back about a tuner's length. That's my tuner length, and bend it off. One thing that I didn't mention, and I probably should have, was the fact that we're always winding so that the string goes to the inside of the headstock. So as of right now, the string goes this way on the bass side, and it's going to go the opposite direction on the treble side. Make sure your winder is set up properly. All right, so I don't know if you guys saw that. The string actually popped out a little bit. What it is, I pulled it tight here. Here's a little trick. This is far from necessary right here, but if you grab the string with the same hand you're holding it down with, there's no chance of that happening. Right underneath that. So we got 2 wraps on that, which is about right for the thinner string. So like I said at the beginning, the thicker string's going to wrap less, the thinner string's going to wrap more. But the thinner strings are going to stretch less too. So keep that in mind. So, awesome. Hey man, yeah, a lot of people use pencil lead. That's pretty common. It's just, you know, what people have around the house all the time. So that's a big part of it. Get back to the face cam stuff. So this guitar, as we mentioned, you know, we don't need to clean the fretboard. We don't need to clean the frets. We don't need to do those type of things. So I didn't do that. But I do want to show a couple little tips and tricks that I use. I am far from sponsored by this company, but I use these on every single guitar. Dunlop 65 Guitar Polish and Cleaner. This stuff is fantastic. And Dunlop 65 Fretboard Ultimate Lemon Oil. A lot of people just go buy lemon oil from the grocery store or whatever. It's cheaper. I get that. I like the little pad it comes with. I think it's a fantastic way to apply it. And it's just easy to use. I've never had any issues. I don't have to worry about it ruining anything. I just use this all the time, constantly, and I recommend it to every single person that comes to the door. This guitar polish and cleaner is fantastic. It's more cleaner than polish. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you're looking for a solid polish, what I like when I'm only doing hand polishing is Legend quality polish. And this stuff you can get from All Parts, which you can get from me because I'm an authorized All Parts retailer. So, last time I was online to grab more of this, they were not in stock. But this stuff works pretty darn great. We've been able to, just with a microfiber cloth and elbow grease and this Legend quality polish, get some pretty dingy looking guitars really, really shiny and new without any electrical buffing or anything like that. This stuff is fantastic. So, Never use this on your fretboard. I use this on all fretboards for whatever it's worth. This stuff is used on fretboards that have open pores. So when I say that, I'm talking like the guitar we were just looking at. It's got a rosewood fretboard. It's an open pore fretboard. There's not lacquer going over the top of it. Putting lemon oil on top of the lacquer is pointless. So if you have a lacquered neck on the top of it where the fretboard is, we don't need lemon oil. If you do not have a lacquered neck, you absolutely need to put oil on your fretboard at least every other time you change your strings. What happens is if that fretboard gets dry, it shrinks, and the frets that go across that fretboard don't shrink with it, so you get what we call fret sprout. Goes around the outside of it comes out the edge of the frets, the fretboard, and you feel those fret ends, and it's uncomfortable, and people don't like it. It also just is going to make your guitar last so much longer, and it's going to play so much better. The final thing that I like to use is steel wool. And with the steel wool, I gotta find it. Might be in here. We did use it very recently. I use steel wool, and when I say steel wool, I mean 4-0 steel wool. The super fine stuff. Just like that, okay? I use this to polish frets, not for an actual like refret or a crown and polish, but just for a restring. This stuff works wonders. You do not want to rub this directly onto a finished neck. So a lacquered neck, you start rubbing this thing all over, it's going to scratch the finish like crazy, and you're going to be very upset. So what they sell, if I can find it, are these fret sleeves. And we can order some of these for you here at Traverse Music. We get them from, well, I get them a couple places. The place that I like the most is Stumac. There's a couple kinds. There is this kind here. So we have this little nook. What happens is you put the rubber band through it, and you can bring the rubber band back around, and voila, you have, get to the right camera, voila, you have a fret that's blocking a fret collar, and it's blocking the fretboard. So if we were to take steel wool here and we were to clean that fret off, we wouldn't be hitting the fretboard. So do you need the rubber band for this? Absolutely not even a little. The other nice thing about the Stumac version is that they give you different sizes. So if that one was actually a little small for this fret, that's the right size to put on this fret. As you can see, we get the whole fret inside there then. So if I was cleaning this with steel wool, it would simply just be putting it on like that, and then we just rub it with steel wool. You'll be very surprised how much gunk comes off of a fretboard when you do that. I mean a ton. And a ton of gunk comes off of the frets. Shiny frets are fantastic. They look great, but they also play a lot smoother. So a shiny fret is a happy fret. So polishing your frets between every string change is very, very good. Putting oil on your fretboard between every string change is great. Every other string change is the least you should do that. When applying the oil, I always over apply the oil. I let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then I go ahead and I wipe off the excess stuff. The wood isn't going to absorb more oil than it can, so there shouldn't be any worry about that happening. Past that, after you stretch your strings, you wind them with only 1.5 to 2 winds, and you should only have to play this guitar about 2 or 3 minutes. Oh, thanks so much for the merch purchase. I really, really appreciate it. That shirt is very, very cool. It comes in both male and female, and my wife got the female version, and she rocks it all the time and loves it. So it's super soft and comfy. I think they're Gildan shirts, so they didn't cut costs there at that manufacturer, which is fantastic. So as I was saying, we should only have to play this guitar about 10 minutes, and the strings are going to stay in tune. We're going to be good to go. Yeah, I guess a few things that I just want to reiterate is, for starters, the cone shape in that tuner, we want to use that to our full advantage, okay? We want to wrap that string so that it always has the pressure up, wrapped around the string going through. So we're applying pressure so we never have to worry about this string coming out of that tuner. It is so incredibly rare when the string comes out of the tuner. Like, I can't even tell you how much. And I see people like wrap it around and then like tie it. I see some people put it through, give it 2 wraps, and then start winding. All sorts of different techniques. You don't need more than this, in my opinion. But by all means, if you think that it sounds different, you think it works better, you do you. I don't want you to tell you that you're wrong. My personal experience is just this is what works best for me. A wrap and a half to 2 wraps. That's all we need. It's going to help get us intonated way quicker, and we're not going to have to worry about going out of tune. We also don't have to worry about there being a bunch of extra string that can stretch at like any moment. Can you imagine having 4 wraps on that low E string and how hard it is to stretch out all of those tiny wraps around that tuner peg? So, maintaining your guitar between your string changes is super important. I didn't even get into like checking the neck and straightening that, but a lot of times I don't like to give advice on straightening necks because if people go, well, I watched your video and I did exactly what you told me to do and I broke the truss rod, I'm going to feel terrible. So a nice straight neck works, but again, a guitar is science. There's so many things, whether it's the radius of the fretboard, the radius of your bridge, is it a bridge that you could change the radius on, the radius of your frets when they were installed, to the person that installed the frets on the guitar, whether it be the machine, the factory, or the person that did a refret 4 years ago, whatever the case is, did they give you the right radius when they do the fret level? So a lot of people don't think about that. When you level frets, you got to keep the radius of those frets. You don't just sand everything perfectly flat and say, all right, we're good to go. You still have that radius in that fretboard. You still have the radius on the frets. So shining those frets up, keeping that golden, making sure that the radiuses are great. Intonation with the bridge, all those things play into this. But I'm going to tell you right now, as long as you have a guitar that's been set up and you're going to just change the strings, you pull those strings off, you clean it like I said, you oil the fretboard, you polish those frets up, you put new strings on just like that, you're going to have a guitar that's going to stay in tune, it's going to sound great, and you're not going to have any issues with that stuff unless you have an issue somewhere else in the guitar. So, if anybody's got any questions right now, I got some time here at the end to give some answers. If you got any comments or anything like that, heck, even if you just want to say hi again, whatever the case is, again, we only have a few people that are actually here in the video. There's a couple on YouTube, a couple on Facebook. The other people that bought tickets will be able to see this later, so there's no issue there. We don't have to worry about that. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer their questions live. It will just be afterward. But if you'd like to come in and play this this telly, so this is the one that we were stringing up here. And again, I hadn't set up the bridge or anything on this yet. I just wanted to use it as a stringing dummy. But the nut's actually not that bad. I literally just threw a tusk nut on there and sanded it for about 3 minutes. It obviously needs more detailed work for it, but this should be ready to go mid next week if somebody wants to come in and give it a play. It's got custom hand-wound pickups in it, nice electronics. It's got the Traverse 4x2 headstock on it. Should be a very, very solid Telecaster. All honesty, I might play it for my show in a couple weekends. So, yeah. But thank you, Barry, again for a merchandise purchase. I don't know whoever's watching this. I know a couple of you have bought merchandise in the past. There are some links in descriptions of other videos, and I think I did it on this one. It was kind of tough. This is new to me doing the Facebook stream. But we have links where you can do donations and you can do merch purchases. Obviously, I'm not asking for any donations on this since this was a paid stream. But if you wanted some merch, coffee mugs, I mean hats, I got one here. I know Russ has got a hat, a coffee mug. Barry's got a coffee mug. They're huge. They're awesome coffee mugs. I've heard nothing but awesome things about them. The shirts are very, very comfortable. I have a couple shirts. My wife's got a couple shirts. Face masks are a thing too. This one's quite dirty, but it's the one that I keep back here in case a customer walks in. But this thing's lasted a long, long time. It definitely needs to be washed, but it's the shop one, so it gets dust and stuff all over it all the time. But they are very comfortable, and they do have the metal piece by the nose too to keep the shape for you, and it's actually quite thin and breathable fabric. So I really like this mask, and I'm not just saying that because it says Traverse Music. Like, if it said nothing on it, I would still wear this mask all the time just because it's the most comfortable one that I found for when I need to wear one. But if you guys can tell your friends and stuff, let them know we're doing these streams. Next Friday, our free stream isn't going to be around. I'm going to be going out of town. But after that, most Fridays we're going to be streaming. We're going to be doing fun stuff. I really like doing this. I really want to continue doing this. And all the support really helps, including you guys buying tickets to this paid one. So thanks again for all your support. I haven't seen any questions come through yet. I do need to find my mouse and just double check that there weren't any on YouTube. Hey, thanks for, I saw you picking up the merch. Thanks so much. Sorry I'm not tracking the YouTube comments also. And I'm glad you got another one. So, the mugs are very, very, very cool. So, they're just, I love how big they are. I don't know, it's silly, but who drinks a tiny cup of coffee nowadays? So, if you guys got questions and you think of them after this, by all means, go ahead, reach out, let me know. If you want to bring your guitar in and you're like halfway through a string, you're like, hey man, I was following your tutorial, I got this far, what am I doing wrong? Go ahead, do it. We got plenty of space back here. We have three workstations in the shop now set up for work space. So usually they're taken up with projects half done, but we can clear space and we can go through it together one-on-one if you want. I'm sure it's just a super minor thing that you're just missing randomly or something like that. So that's awesome. Glad to hear it. So again, if you guys got questions or anything like that, please feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you so much for buying tickets. It means a lot. The support has been fantastic. I couldn't ask for a better customer base. You guys rock. Thank you again, and hope to hear from you guys really soon. Everybody have a happy Mother's Day. Tell your mothers Happy Mother's Day, or your wives that if you have kids, Happy Mother's Day, or I don't know, your significant other that plays the role as the mother. No judgment here. So hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Thank you guys so much. Here comes my really terrible slow transition to music in the stream ending screen because I'm the only person here.